Before you scroll any further, before your attention moves on, just pause with me for a moment. Not because this is urgent, not because this is dramatic, but because your heart might be tired, and tired hearts need gentleness, not noise. Let me ask you something quietly. What if the heaviness you've been carrying is not a sign that Allah has forgotten you, but a sign that something is being prepared? What if the waiting you dislike so much is not punishment, but positioning? Most people assume that when nothing seems to be happening, nothing is happening. But that assumption is human, not divine. Allah does not work in visible rush. He works in perfect order. Sometimes the reason your heart feels unsettled is not because you are losing faith, but because it's being stretched. And stretching is uncomfortable, even when it is necessary. There is something important you should know. Allah's silence does not mean distance. It does not mean neglect. It does not mean rejection. Silence, in the language of Allah, often means alignment. We live in a world that fears quiet. If something is silent, we panic. If an answer is delayed, we assume denial. If a door doesn't open quickly, we walk away. But Allah does not rush because He sees what you cannot. You see the moment. Allah sees the outcome. You see the desire. Allah sees the consequence. You see what you want right now. Allah sees who you must become to carry it. That is why waiting feels heavy. Not because Allah is far, but because transformation is close. Hope rarely disappears all at once. It fades slowly. You don't stop believing suddenly. You just become tired. Tired of repeating the same dua. Tired of being patient without clarity. Tired of trusting without reassurance. At first you wait with peace. Then you wait with questions. Then you wait with guarded expectations. And eventually, something subtle happens. You still pray, but you stop expecting. You still ask Allah, but you prepare yourself for disappointment. This is not weakness. This is not failure. This is exhaustion. And exhaustion is where the heart needs care, not judgment. Shaitan understands this very well. He doesn't always try to take faith away. Sometimes he only tries to lower your expectations of Allah. He whispers things like, don't hope too much. Protect yourself from disappointment. Maybe this is just not written for you. But lowering hope in Allah is not wisdom. It is fear pretending to be caution. Here is a truth that brings clarity. Hardship does not break believers. Misunderstanding hardship does. When you assume delay means rejection, when you assume struggle means abandonment, when you assume unanswered dua means you are unseen, you begin to suffer twice. Once from the trial and once from the meaning you attach to it. But Allah never said delay is a sign of refusal. Allah never said struggle means He is displeased. Allah never said silence means He is not listening. Those ideas come from fear, not revelation. Ask yourself this gently. If Allah truly wanted you distant, why does your heart still turn to Him? If Allah had closed the door, why do you still feel the urge to knock? The pull you feel toward Allah is not random. It is mercy. It is guidance that did not leave you, even when answers felt slow. We often forget this. Allah is always doing something, even when we see nothing. While you replay worries in your mind, Allah is removing outcomes that would have harmed your iman. While you compare your journey to others, Allah is protecting you from arriving somewhere unready. There are things you once begged for that you are grateful you did not receive. At the time, you couldn't understand why. Now you see clearly. That clarity came later, not earlier. That is how Allah teaches trust, not by explanation, but by experience. If Allah gave everything immediately, we would confuse speed with love. But Allah wants your heart anchored, not dependent on timing. Giving up does not cancel Allah's decree, but it can disconnect you from the readiness required to receive it. Some blessings are heavy. They require patience, emotional stability, and spiritual grounding. So Allah prepares the heart first, quietly, slowly, gently. You think you are being ignored, but in reality, you are being shaped. And here is something few people realize. Doubt often grows strongest right before relief arrives. Not because faith is weak, but because the heart is close to change. There comes a stage in faith that feels heavier than the struggle itself. Not because the pain increased, but because hope feels delicate. This is the stage where you did everything right. You prayed, you waited, you stayed patient when shortcuts were tempting. You chose obedience even when no reward was visible, and still, nothing seems to move. This stage is not accidental, This is the moment sincerity is revealed. Anyone can trust Allah when results are visible, but trusting Allah when obedience feels unrewarded, that is true faith. Let this truth settle in you. If Allah intended to deprive you, He would not have trained you this long. If Allah planned to disappoint you, He would not have strengthened your heart to endure. What feels like almost giving up is often the final stretch before relief. Relief rarely announces itself. It arrives quietly, unexpectedly, completely. One moment of surrender, one sincere turning back, one alignment of intention, and suddenly, what once felt impossible becomes inevitable. Shaitan knows this. That is why he focuses on your expectations, not your belief. But Allah does not reward perfection. He rewards persistence. Staying connected, even when motivation fades, is a form of worship few recognize. So continue. Pray even when your heart feels still. Obey even when you feel unseen. Trust even when understanding is incomplete, because Allah's promise does not depend on your emotional state, it depends on His decree. And when Allah decides the moment has come, nothing can delay it. Not people, not systems, not mistakes, not timing, not your past. What Allah has written for you will reach you, even if the entire world stands in the way. Your waiting was seen, your tears were counted, your patience was recorded, nothing was wasted. Every moment was shaping you into someone who could receive the blessing without losing closeness to Allah. So remain sincere, remain gentle with your heart, remain hopeful without desperation. Allah's gifts do not arrive early. They arrive exactly on time. The delay was not distance, it was direction. The silence was not absence, it was mercy. And the hope you nearly released was the very thing keeping you close to Allah. If this reminder eased your heart, take a moment to like it, so it can reach someone else quietly struggling. Share it with someone who needs reassurance. Subscribe for more reminders that strengthen faith without pressure. And turn on the notification bell so you don't miss moments of guidance meant for you. This is where fear softens. This is where trust settles. This is where waiting turns into certainty, and Allah knows best.